I watch them in the digital dark. Young men, capable men, men who should be dangerous, in the best sense of the word. But instead of sharpening their blades, they obsess over the metallurgy of the steel. They gather in forums and discords, circling around two letters like it's scripture. IQ. If you need a number to feel powerful, you're already losing. They talk about it as if it's a final verdict on a man's life, like a royal seal stamped onto the future. And I understand why. When you're young, you don't have much to show the world. No status, no resources, no leverage. You're still building your body, your resume, your identity, your place in the hierarchy. But you might have one thing: a brain. So the brain becomes your religion. IQ becomes proof that you matter, proof that one day the world will be forced to acknowledge you. IQ isn't the problem. What you worship it for is. It's not evil. It's not even stupid. It's immaturity. More precisely, it's the coping strategy of an intelligent young man who feels powerless. And the tragedy is simple. The very men who could use intelligence to become formidable become hypnotized by the number and never do the work that turns potential into power. So tonight, we perform surgery. Clean. Precise. No emotion. We separate your intelligence from your ego. We study why brilliant men fail and why average men often rule the world. The world doesn't reward intelligence, it rewards force, applied correctly. This isn't about morality. The world doesn't care if you're good or smart. It cares about kinetic energy, output, delivery, execution. If you're tired of being the smartest person in the room with nothing to show for it, listen closely. It's time to walk out of the trap. What's going on, and welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get into it. If you're a young man with strong intellect, you've probably felt it. Alienation. You see patterns other people don't see. You notice inconsistencies. You ask questions that make rooms go quiet. You're drawn to systems and meaning, things most people don't want to wrestle with after a long day. The smartest man in the room is often the loneliest, at first. And in average environments, especially typical school systems, there isn't a clean place for that kind of mind. The brainiacs are thrown into the same room, expected to move at the same pace, expected to care about the same incentives. That can feel like slow suffocation. So, you isolate. Not because you're better, but because your mind is playing a different sport. Isolation creates hunger, not for attention, for something deeper, respect, recognition, proof you aren't invisible. So you grab the one thing you can measure. IQ becomes soothing. It becomes a private revenge fantasy. You don't respect me now, but you will. IQ becomes a throne you build in your head because you can't build one in the world yet, and that's the trap's first move. The ego wants a verdict. Development is humiliating. A verdict is comforting. IQ becomes a verdict. But destiny is the story men tell themselves when they refuse to become disciplined. Here's the brutal truth: intelligent people learn late, sometimes too late. Potential is not power. Potential is a blueprint, a promise, a possibility. And the world doesn't pay for possibilities, it pays for output. The world doesn't reward what you could do, it rewards what you do on schedule. A man can have an extraordinary mind and still lose to a man with average intellect and relentless execution. Not once, not sometimes, often, because life isn't a philosophy seminar. It's a battlefield of incentives, and incentives don't care how smart you are, only whether you deliver. The consistent person becomes dependable. The dependable person becomes trusted. The trusted person becomes valuable. The valuable person gets opportunity. And opportunity compounds. Consistency is compound interest for your reputation. Meanwhile, the brilliant man who drifts, who appears, performs miracles, then disappears, becomes a liability. Not because he's bad, because he's unreliable. Society has a quiet preference. It rewards what it can rely on. A stable flame beats a lightning strike. If you're only impressive occasionally, You're not impressive. You're unstable. So translate it strategically. Your intelligence isn't the weapon, it's the workshop. If you don't build, you don't win. Psychology gives us a practical lens, the big 5 traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Notice what isn't there. IQ, because IQ isn't personality, it's cognitive capacity. And among those traits, one quietly bullies IQ around: conscientiousness, discipline, order, follow-through. The ability to do what you said you'd do after the mood evaporates. Most genius failures aren't mental, they're behavioral. A man with moderate intelligence and high conscientiousness will outwork, outlast, and outproduce a genius who can't stick to anything. And here's the strategic gold. Conscientiousness is trainable. It's a muscle. It responds to routine, accountability, consequence. It responds to standards. But the IQ-fixated mind rarely trains it because training implies you're unfinished. The ego loves the fantasy of greatness and hates the boredom of becoming great. So the IQ-fixated man confuses capacity with competence. Capacity is what you could do. Competence is what you do repeatedly. The world rewards competence. IQ is horsepower, conscientiousness is traction, and traction wins races. Now we move into the uncomfortable truth. Modern success is often social. Even if your work is solitary, the distribution of your work is not. Opportunities come through people. Trust comes through people. Reputation comes through people. Which means your ability to navigate humans, speak, persuade, negotiate, sell, matters. If you can't move people, your ideas won't move the world. That's why extroversion, or at least trained social competence, beats pure intellect so often. Not because extroverts are smarter, often they aren't, but they can operate in the human arena. An introverted genius might be correct, quietly, alone, while an average man with presence leads the room. Leadership isn't awarded to the smartest man. It's awarded to the man who can carry risk in public. You don't need to become loud. You don't need to become a performer. But if you're intelligent and socially underpowered, the strategic move is obvious. Use intelligence to build social power, public speaking, debate, Toastmasters, sales reps, deliberate exposure. You don't find confidence, you manufacture it through reps. It's not glamorous, but neither is losing for 10 years because you refuse to train. Here's the trait people don't praise because it isn't flashy: impulse control. Impulse control is the ability to absorb disrespect, discomfort, temptation, provocation without letting the moment hijack the future. This trait decides careers, relationships, and freedom because life is full of traps disguised as moments. Most men don't get defeated by enemies. They get defeated by reactions: a rude comment, a humiliating slight, a tempting shortcut, a power struggle with the wrong person, the urge to win a moment that costs you a decade. A man with weak impulse control trades his future for the pleasure of the reaction. A man with strong impulse control wins quietly. Impulse control means you can say, "Not now, not here, not like this." Restraint isn't weakness, it's sovereignty. It means you can swallow the moment and choose a better battlefield. Even in small things, the disciplined eater beats the emotional eater. The man who can delay gratification beats the man who must satisfy every urge immediately. A genius without impulse control becomes a slave to his moods. A brilliant mind in the hands of an undisciplined man is a weapon pointed inward. Now we get honest. If you're obsessing over IQ, there's usually a confession underneath it. It's the only advantage you feel you have. You don't have money yet. You don't have a reputation yet. You don't have a network yet. You don't have accomplishments yet. So you cling to being the smart one. When you're starving, you'll worship anything that feels like food. Once you cling to that identity, your ego makes it sacred. And your ego whispers, "If IQ isn't everything, then what do you have?" That's why IQ obsession can turn into contempt. It becomes comforting to believe. People who are less intelligent don't deserve respect because it makes you feel superior while you feel powerless. Contempt is a painkiller, not a strategy. Power gained through contempt is unstable. It creates arrogance, and arrogance makes you blind. Here's the move that changes everything. If you have high intelligence, treat it like a weapon you're responsible for mastering, not a crown you're entitled to wear. Your intelligence is supposed to serve your development. Use it to build traits that actually win. Conscientiousness through routine and accountability. Social competence through deliberate practice. Impulse control through discomfort training and restraint. Wisdom through self-critique. IQ is your tool chest, not your identity. Because wisdom is not intelligence, there is no automatic bridge between the two. Intelligence can tell you what's true in a vacuum. Wisdom tells you what's true when humans are involved, and humans are always involved. If you're clever but not wise, life will outplay you with a smile. I've known wise people who weren't especially intelligent, and I've known highly intelligent people who were, frankly, foolish. Wisdom is accurate judgment in the real world. Wisdom is seeing consequences before they arrive. Wisdom is knowing what matters. Wisdom is humility in the face of complexity. Intelligence is speed. Wisdom is direction. The intellect can become intoxicated by its own clarity. It begins to assume, if I can explain it, I am superior to it. That's how minds become sharp but brittle, great at critique, terrible at construction. Critique is cheap. Construction is power. Here's a truth most people won't say out loud. Not everyone is creative. Not everyone is deeply interested in ideas. People say everyone is creative to be encouraging, but true creativity, the ability to generate novel, useful patterns, is rare. Deep fascination with abstractions is rare. So if that's you, you're in a minority. Being rare doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Minorities need the right environment. A heavyweight doesn't train with beginners. So don't resent the crowd. Find your weight class. Find communities where high-level conversation is normal. Find friends who can handle your pace. But never confuse rarity with entitlement. The moment you confuse intelligence with superiority, you become a parody. There's a social disease that spreads among smart people. It starts as pride, then arrogance, then contempt, then isolation. Isolation gets rationalized as being above everyone, but often it's something uglier, an inability to compete outside the intellectual realm. If you only win in conversation, you'll start believing conversation should run the world. And when the world doesn't reward you automatically, bitterness appears, disguised as sophistication. The stereotype is familiar, the brilliant man who critiques everything and builds nothing, funny on screen, tragic in real life. The cure is simple but not easy. Develop dimensions that aren't intellectual: body, discipline, social skill, output, responsibility. A man who can only think is not powerful. He's just aware of his own cage. I've heard intelligent people speak about large groups of voters, any side, with contempt. And I remember thinking, be careful. Not because you must agree with them, because contempt is strategically stupid. If half the population believes something, it may be wrong, but it isn't irrelevant. Dismissing half the board doesn't make you smart. It makes you blind. A civil state cannot be built on the assumption that my side is smart and morally superior and the other side is beneath me. There is no straight line between intelligence and virtue, no straight line between education and wisdom. If your intellect becomes an excuse to dehumanize people, you've proven you're not wise, only clever. Wisdom can disagree without contempt. Cleverness can't. Society is not a debate club. It's an interdependent machine. Here's a symbol I've always respected: the builder. In building, dishonesty punishes you quickly. Cut corners and the structure collapses. Reality exposes you. The warning is clear. Do not equate intellectual brilliance with moral superiority. A person who builds something real, who shows up, carries responsibility, produces value, earns a respect no test can grant. Reality respects the maker, not the commentator. Societies rest on tangible work. So if you're an intellectual type, keep your niche circles, your high-level communities, but respect what exists beyond them. You can be elite in thought and still be honorable in humility. The world needs both. It cannot survive if one side treats the other with contempt. There's an old warning threaded through philosophy. A man can develop one dimension so aggressively that the rest of the self becomes underdeveloped. The modern version is obvious. The intellect is hyperactivated while the being, body, discipline, humility, social ability, character, is neglected. That imbalance makes a man sharp but brittle, capable of critique, incapable of construction. A sharp man with no foundation breaks easily. Construction is where power is. If you want influence, build something the world can lean on, not just arguments, not just commentary, something real. The world doesn't follow your thoughts, it follows your structure. So here's the message, delivered cleanly. If you have high IQ, good. That's a powerful engine. But an engine without steering is a crash waiting to happen. Your intelligence is the beginning of your journey, not the end. Use it to develop. Discipline and consistency. Social competence and presence. Impulse control and restraint. Humility and self-critique. Practical output and tangible value. The scoreboard isn't in your head. It's on the field. Stop using intelligence as a substitute for development. Because there is nothing sadder, nothing more wasteful than a man with a brilliant mind who never learned to govern himself, never learned to show up, never learned to build, never learned to connect, and then spends his life angry the world didn't hand him success. The world doesn't hand success to anyone. It rewards the men who become dangerous in multiple dimensions. So if you're the smart guy in the room, don't worship the number, respect it, then put it to work. Because brains are not the finish line, they're the starting pistol. If you're truly intelligent, prove it with output, and the race is still yours to run. All right, thanks again for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.